Hi, I'm Ellis, I'm 24 and I am non-binary. It was like a year ago when I found out about the term non-binary, and as cliche as it sounds, it did feel like just a light bulb that just went off in my head. This is me telling my story. This is what it's like being me.
Is it the fever? Is it the love I leave with her when she's still?
I am entering this competition because I want to get out there that there are people who are non-binary. To me, being non-binary means I am not female, I'm not male. I operate outside of the gender binary. Ever since I was little, I didn't actually feel like I was properly a girl. I was always a bit tomboyish, always hung out with boys more than girls. At some point growing up, I was like, was I meant to be a boy or something?
Haven't we lost it all? So
I didn't used to like myself, I used to pretty much hate myself, didn't I?
She was so sad inside, and it's hard because you can't mend her. You've just got to nurture her and be there for her. And
Let me do my thing. I think going to uni, because I was surrounded by more like-minded people, and I actually find out a bit more about LGBT has actually helped us like myself a little bit more. So this is Sam, this is my drag mother.
Fabulous as I am.
Oh, if it wasn't for like having my drag mother and my friends, I probably wouldn't have really came out and felt like really accepted.
Non-binary is kind of the umbrella term.
Yeah.
Some people just identify as non-binary, but then there are, within the non-binary spectrum, there is a lot of different sort of
Like
terms that are known.
you're the
I
gender
prefer gender neutral.
side.
For me, it's just pretty much non-binary. However, 95% of the time, I do just present masculine/androgynous.
School, I didn't really have much education, like gender and sex-wise. It was like, it was all hush-hush.
It was all hush-hush. Literally, it was only hetero, cis sex, that was it.
I'm still new to this whole coming out as non-binary. I'm still learning all the terms. I'm still getting used to it.
you say you're non-binary, but then you have a boyfriend.
It was like, we all feel like we have to justify what we are. It's like, oh, here's our credentials. They are bisexual and non-binary. I am a man.
Keep me sane, keep me close. I'm speaking so unstable. Put callous back on the table.
These ones were from when I did my auditions for the alternative model competition.
Body knows, body knows.
I did my first cosplay. It was mostly me trying to learn about having to do more masculine makeup style, so trying to make myself look more masculine than feminine.
So low, back I go, so loco.
I am with my drag son.
When you're a drag queen or a drag king, it's an impersonation. You're kind of taking it out of the stereotype of your opposite gender.
Yeah.
It's when I was trying out drag for the first time. She's trying to be a man. She wants to be a man, she wants to get rid of all this, and sadly, Matt actually got quite a lot of abuse for it. There's like...
Yeah, like insulting me. It's obviously you like men, otherwise why would you be letting your girlfriend go be a drag king? It's like, no, it's nothing to do with that. That's her. She wants to do some drag. I'm happy enough with it because I know she's comfortable in her sexuality.
When the whole world's got the wrong idea, even though I made myself clear in the past.
I'm not here to like scare everyone away, I'm not here to corrupt anyone. I'm not really that threatening, am I? I'll see you on the other side.
Fast to say, I'm gonna do it my way. I'm gonna do it my way.
This time last year, I had just got the courage to say, I am non-binary. That's who I am. And don't get me wrong, it's been a great journey from 1 year ago. It has had its low moments. There is still a lot of ignorance in the world. People look at me and go, non-binary, that's not a real thing. I'm just Ellis, and I just want to get on with my life.
The single most common question I get asked is, are you a boy or are you a girl? The simple answer is no. But then the response after that is usually a very confused, what? So here is the explanation. I am non-binary, and that means I identify as something other than male or female. Our society and history has led us to believe over thousands of years that there are only people who are male and people who are female. But that is because past society has based gender on physical sex.
Let me see what it is, nurse. Ah, yes, what a strapping young lad.
It's outdated. The truth is that gender is in the brain, and physical sex is a completely separate and different thing that is private to every individual. What people really mean when they're asking the boy or girl question is creepily, so, what genitals do you have? People need to realise it doesn't matter what living meat skeleton you've been born in, it's what you feel that defines you. Non-binary is a blanket term for anyone who identifies out with the binary gender. There are endless ways of being non-binary, and no two people identify in the same way. So just remember, gender is what you feel, not what your parts are. Don't be afraid to be yourself. Bye, guys.
I'm non-binary. I guess this is me coming out as not a cisgender man, but in fact a non-binary person. And it's understandable that you might not... Oh, shut up. It's understandable that you might have some questions around that and what it means exactly and what my identity is now, what that means for me and the people around me. So I'll go through some of those questions. What does being non-binary mean? Well, it's quite wide. Anyone who's non-binary doesn't define as either a man or a woman. It's somewhere between or outside that gender binary. This can be agender people, multi-gender people, intersex people, androgyne people, and I identify outside of that boundary myself. I'm not exactly sure what yet. Somewhere between agender and androgyne. Why? Well, for me, I've never strongly identified as a man. I've never had much of an internal gender identity, and I've mostly been able to just avoid assessing that as a question and a part of my life until now, when I've started feeling dysphoria at being restricted in how I can present myself. You can see my terrible makeup application at the minute is part of exploring a gender identity outside the rigid gender role of being a man. Without that internal sense of gender identity, it just felt like being a man was, you know, just the norm that was placed on me, but in fact I don't identify with that. I don't identify with a particular gender role at all. What does this mean your sexuality is? Well, I guess the word is gynophilic, in that I'm still attracted to feminine presenting people, or I guess more broadly women. But if I was a cisgender man, I would be heterosexual. But I'm not. And it's kind of strange that we identify our sexualities based on who, on the gender we identify as, rather than what we're attracted to most of the time. But I think the word is gynophilic. Aren't you just a girly man? Well, what an awful question. No, I'm not just a girly man. This is like a fundamental gender identity question, and there is no problem with self-identifying men presenting as feminine as they like, but personally I've been thinking about my own identity, and being non-binary is what I am. Non-binary presenting androgynously or masculinely or femininely is just part of who I am. It's not about being a man or a woman at this point. Are you changing anything about yourself? Well, I'm changing my presentation somewhat, as you can see at the minute. I'm wanting to wear more feminine clothes, wear makeup, not be so constrained to a male gender role, and perhaps just present androgynously from now on. My name's still going to be Aiden. I'm not looking into hormone therapy or gender reassignment surgery, at least not at the minute. It's mainly about my own presentation.
That's
Just
wrong.
so
It's complicated.
I don't like you anymore. Yeah, well, okay, if you're asking any of those, then you're a cock and I don't want to be a friend. So, no, that's not the case. This has been pretty hard to grapple with for me over the past few months, but actually coming to terms and understanding who I am, what my identity is, has been pretty fundamental and pretty liberating for me. It's not about trying to get attention, and it's not just a phase. This is me actually figuring out who I am, and I'm not, you know, asking for anything that other people wouldn't automatically get if they were cisgender. How can I help? That is a friendly question. If you can refer to me using gender-neutral pronouns like they and them rather than he and him, I would appreciate that, though I understand I still do it to myself. I still misgender myself as him. Sometimes I understand that the transition is difficult, but they and them is generally preferred, but I also quite like she and her. They both honour me. And generally, if you can just not shame my actions of identifying outside of the gender binary, if you can be supportive of whatever I'm doing related to that, then that's the best thing you can help with, being, you know, not even vocally supportive, just not actively trying to shame who I am and how I present. That's what you can do. Basically, if you treated me well before, treat me as you did then. Just, you know, keep in mind who I am. So if you have any questions about my identity or any queries how you can properly talk to me, properly address me, which isn't particularly different as you might have addressed me before, then questions are fine, as long as you're somewhat respectful of my identity and don't disregard it in the question. Then I'm fine answering whatever. I'm still trying to work this out myself, but it's a learning curve, and, you know, coming out is an important step in that. This is about making me more comfortable in who I am and more comfortable in how I want to present myself to people. I'm more comfortable with the choices that I make about my own body, about my own style and presentation. And this bright red lipstick might not be a part of that necessarily, but at least I feel a bit freer to experiment with it. So I'm non-binary. Lefty, green, non-binary, cozy punk, I guess. So keep that in mind for whenever you're interacting with me, as you would have kept in mind my apparent cisgender maleness in the past. If you can be a decent person about it, then that's all I ask. So this is me coming out. Whew. I'll see you around. I'll keep doing mostly the things that I was doing before, but I kind of needed to announce. I'll see ya.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, you alright?
Yep, how are you?
Good, yeah. Sorry I didn't see your message before.
No, it's fine.
I forgot to take my phone out of the pocket.
Oh, it's grand.
Oh. What is it then?
You know how some people are non-binary?
Yeah.
I'm one of them.
Yeah.
Sorry?
Yeah. Is that all?
Yeah, pretty much, but it's worth letting you know.
Yes.
The other thing was, are you aware of non-binary gender identities?
I'm aware of them as a concept.
And how the concept applies to particular people identifying as non-binary? I am one of those people.
Oh, very good. Excellent. Well, thank you for telling me, but it doesn't affect the way I see you at all. So you might as well not bloody have told me.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Hey guys, it's Lainey. So I get asked about my gender and my pronouns a lot, so I decided I'm just gonna do the gender tag. So first question is, how do I self-identify? I identify as agender, which to me means basically genderless. I mean, that's the actual definition. I don't identify as being a female or a male, kind of gender neutral, somewhere in the middle of those two things, but neither one or the other. The second question is, what pronouns honor you? I usually prefer they, them pronouns, but there are some exceptions, like my close family or my close friends still use feminine pronouns for me just because that's what's comfortable for everybody. And I'm not really out to any of my family yet, so hi mom and dad. So obviously they still use feminine pronouns as well. I don't know if I'd ask them to change pronouns for me because I know that they're not gonna get it. The third question is, describe the style of clothing that you most often wear. The clothing I most often wear is kind of a mixture, gender neutral and androgynous, I suppose. I don't wear a lot of very feminine clothing. I don't really know. I don't know if I have a certain style. Number 4, talk about your choices with body hair. How do I style my hair? Well, I'm wearing a hat today. 1, because I freaking love this hat. 2, because my hair is doing this. You can see it's real short and I like to keep it this length. I just straighten it a little bit usually. What do you choose to shave or choose not to shave? It depends on what I'm doing or if I feel like shaving. If I don't feel like shaving, I don't shave. 5, talk about cosmetics. Do you choose to wear makeup? Yes, as you can see. And my makeup has nothing to do with my gender identity. It just has to do with the fact that I like wearing makeup. Do I paint my nails? No, but that's mostly just because I bite my nails really bad. Number 6, have you experienced being misgendered? If so, how often? Yeah, I'm misgendered a lot online. A lot of people think that being non-binary isn't a real thing, and so they're like, you have to choose one or the other. You can't be in the middle, blah, 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 blah. You learn to brush it off because these people don't know you. They don't know anything about what you've gone through and how you feel. As far as pronouns go, a lot of people still use she pronouns for me, which doesn't really bother me to a great extent because I think a lot of people don't know. I don't take offense to that unless somebody does it purposely. Like, she's a girl, so she has to use these stuff like that. Number 7, do I experience dysphoria? How does that affect me? I do experience some dysphoria. It's a lot less now that I'm dressing the way I want to dress and I have my hair cut the way that I want it to be cut. Most of my dysphoria has to do with my chest. Surprisingly enough, breastfeeding doesn't cause me any dysphoria, so I'm really grateful that I'm able to do that. 8, talk about children. Are you interested in having children? Yes, I already have children. Would I want to carry a child if there were an option for you? Yes, I already have. Would do it again. Is it important to you that you earn more than any partner you may have? No. Are you uncomfortable when others pay for you or offer to pay for you? If it's other people like my friends, yeah, I don't like when my friends pay for me, but I let Greg pay for me. We're married. Anything else you want to share about your experience with gender? I guess I would just say anybody else struggling with their gender identity to just take your time and not try to label yourself right away. Another thing I'd want to say is that being non-binary is a real thing, and don't let people make you feel like it's not a real thing. You don't need to identify as either a man or a woman. There is a lot of other things on the spectrum, and it's a real and a valid gender. Don't let people invalidate you for who you actually are. Alright guys, so I hope this cleared up a lot of confusion that you guys had. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys next week. Bye!
They told me when I started school I had to join a line. There's one for girls and one for boys. I asked them which was mine. They asked me if my mother raised a daughter or a son. They sent me to the corner where I made a line of 1. And the line for the girls was pretty pink, and the line for the boys was blue. There's another line for everyone else, a line for me and you. Some people have a mind that's small, a mind that gives them trouble. With party frocks and stompy boots and lipstick on my stubble. You tell me I'm confused about the person I should be. The only one confused is you. I know that I am me. And the door for the girls was pretty pink, and the door for the boys was blue. There's another door to the outside world, a door for me and you. Now if you think your business is to label me or guess the sort of thing I keep beneath my trousers or my dress, it's not your call to ask about the contents of my pants, unless I take you home to bed. And sweetie, not a chance. And the world for the girls was pretty pink, and the world for the boys was blue. There's another world for everyone else.
Okay, so you've never heard of a non-binary gender before, and out of nowhere, someone tells you that they're non-binary. What exactly does that mean? And is it even a real thing? Yes it is. Sorry, that was a really bad cliffhanger. Non-binary genders are real, even though they've only gained public visibility relatively recently. A non-binary gender is essentially a gender that is not strictly woman or man. So to figure out what I mean by that, we have to talk about what gender is. And when it comes down to it, gender is how you feel and identify. Let's say you were born with a penis and assigned male at birth because of that. Then you grew up and identified as a boy, and then you identified as a man, and you've never had any doubts about that, and you're perfectly okay identifying like that. That would make you a cisgender man, and vice versa for cisgender women. Now, you've probably heard of the term transgender before. So a transgender person is someone who doesn't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. So, for instance, if you were born with a penis and assigned male at birth because of that, but later grew up and felt that you identified more strongly with being a girl or a woman, that would make you a trans woman. That narrative you're probably a little more comfortable with. Now let's just change one small detail to explain non-binary genders. Let's say you were born with a penis and assigned male at birth, but when you grew up, you didn't identify with being a man or a woman. Neither identity felt quite right for you. That would make you a non-binary person. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking that that's not possible because men have penises and women have vaginas. But you know it's not that simple. Transgender people exist. There are women who have penises and men who have vaginas. That's pretty mainstream and well accepted by now. LGBT plus rights are widely supported, and that T stands for transgender. So if you can understand that sometimes people don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth, then I think you can understand that they might also not completely identify with the other major gender. And where that leaves them is identifying as some sort of third option, a non-binary gender. Every major LGBT plus organization in the US recognizes that non-binary genders exist. They're slowly gaining visibility and acceptance. They've been around for thousands of years in various cultures, and what you're seeing today is just people finding the language to describe how they feel. I'm not going to try and convince you that non-binary genders are real in this video because I think that if you really don't want to believe it, you won't. But I will ask you to be open-minded and understanding and compassionate for experiences that are unlike your own. Not everyone experiences the world in the same way that you do, and you have to recognize that. As non-binary genders gradually gain public acceptance, recognizing that they exist will put you on the right side of history in the long run. All of that being said, let's get into some more detailed aspects of it. For one, many people consider non-binary people to fall under the trans umbrella. That's because trans means not identifying with the gender you were assigned at birth, and non-binary people certainly don't identify with the gender they were assigned at birth. So many people identify as trans and non-binary. Another thing to note is that many non-binary folks use they/them pronouns instead of he, him, or she, her. This might be confusing at first, using they/them for a single person, but you'll get used to it pretty quickly. There's actually a lot of historical precedent for the singular they, and in fact, many of us already use it to refer to singular people when we don't yet know their gender. I promise you, with a little bit of effort, referring to a non-binary person as they/them is totally possible. But not all non-binary people use they/them pronouns. Some use he, him, or she, her for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons might be that they identify as both a man and non-binary, or as a woman and non-binary. For instance, I'm a woman and I'm non-binary, because I feel like on the gender spectrum, mine lands somewhere in between gender neutral and super feminine, so I identify with both terms. The same can happen for non-binary trans men. Also, non-binary itself is both a label and an umbrella term. Many people identify as a more specific gender under the non-binary umbrella, like genderqueer, gender non-conforming, agender, bigender, gray gender, or many others. If you're unsure what pronouns to use for someone, it's always considered polite to ask. And if you slip up and accidentally use the wrong pronouns, just correct yourself. Maybe apologize quickly and move on. If you continue to misgender someone by using the wrong pronouns, you can make them feel really bad, and if you become overly apologetic every time you make a mistake, you could draw more attention to them than they want. And lastly, be careful of gendered terms for non-binary people. Ask them if they prefer sir or ma'am or neither. Don't call them a man or a woman or a dude or a chick unless they say it's okay. There are a lot of gendered things in our language that you might not realize are gendered until you have to think about it. But that's okay. We're finding ways of making it work, and we're finding ways to accommodate everyone's needs. So I hope that was a good little little explanation of being non-binary. There's a bunch more stuff that I could get into, but I wanted to keep this as simple as possible. I'll link to some other great non-binary folks in the description so you can go learn from them as well. I'll also link to Ash Hardell's book, The ABCs of LGBT, because it has some really insightful stuff to say about non-binary genders. And Ash is actually a really lovely non-binary person themselves. This isn't sponsored, by the way, I just really like that book. In fact, I was one of the editors for it, and it's so good. I highly recommend it. Anyway, that's all I had for you today. If you would like to subscribe, you can click up here, and if you'd like to support me on Patreon, you can click over here. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Hello, I am Jeffrey Marsh, and I am a Vine superstar. I have 150 million views on Vine, and I'm going to talk to you today about being gender queer. Here's what you need to know. Gender fluid, gender whatever. Here's what you need to know. You don't need to decide your gender. You don't need to decide who you are. When I was 18, my father and I had an interesting conversation. I had just come out for real to every single person, right? I had told some people before that, but when I was 18, I decided everybody, senior in high school, everybody needs to know. Told everyone. And I also shaved my legs for the first time. And if you've seen my Vines, you see me dancing and kicking up my heels on Vine with beautiful, gorgeous, smooth legs. Well, when I was 18 was the first time I did it. I came down from taking a shower and shaving. I shaved the whole way up to my armpits in the shower. It took a long time that first time. And I came downstairs and I was wearing shorts and my dad said, "What's that? What are those? What'd you do to your legs?" And I said, "I shaved my legs." I was feeling defiant. And he said, "You can't do that. What will the neighbors think? That's not what boys do." And I said, "I am me. I shaved these legs because I want to." And then he started yelling at me and I started yelling back, and we were yelling. And the whole thing escalated to violence. I don't want you to ever be in that same situation. I knew then, as has become even clearer as the years have gone by, I don't need to choose a gender, and I don't need to fight for whatever it is in my life that I'm choosing. I don't ever need to be aggressive. I don't ever need to convince. I don't ever need to argue. I know deeply within my bones who I am, and that who I am is somewhere in between or outside of or with both man and woman. I'm a human being. And I think we are all, to some degree, between, around, above, man and woman. We're all over the place because we're all human beings.